give me my blessings, give me my love, give me my try, give me my abundance, give me my mind, give me my time, give me my. Hey Siri.
Call the foster care system on incognito and protect the guests.
Hey, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for giving me some of your time. The questions I'm going to ask you today, how do you know this information?
I know this information because I am a former employee of the state.
And how long were you employed with the state?
I was employed with the state for about, I would say, 6.5 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you got a pretty good step in where you know this head on.
Yes, a very thorough background.
Okay. Okay. So when you first started, what was your first observation?
When I first started, I just observed the children. In the foster care system. First of all, I wasn't. I want to say I wasn't fully aware that it was so many kids in the foster care system.
Mm,
And when I got there, I realized we have over 12,000 kids currently in Georgia in the foster care system due
mm,
to different things. And it varies from neglect, behaviors, parental issues. I mean, the list goes on.
mm.
Yeah.
It's even kids that have to go to mental institutions as well, right? Or is that a part of?
Absolutely.
Wow, wow,
Yeah.
okay. Um,
Yes.
so what was your mindset once dealing with the children? Like when you became more in the flow of work, what was your mindset once you started dealing with them personally?
Yeah. When I first started, I seen the situations that these kids were in and what they were coming from. I just really wanted to be a support system for them, like a human outlet. I literally was, trying to get them to maybe like speak about their trauma and just trying to make them understand that they have someone in the system because there's so many people that rotate and work with them on a daily basis. I just wanted to be, an advocate for them and teach them how to also advocate for themselves.
Right. So, do you find yourself, or do you ever find yourself feeling like seeing these situations and circumstances a issue for your mental and emotional state of being?
Yes, of course. Yes. I personally don't have children myself, but seeing children in that manner to where they've been either sexually harassed or sexually abused by their loved ones, i.e. their parents or distant family members, it really does break my heart because I feel like children are very innocent and they really can't defend themselves to a certain degree versus an adult. So to see that they're getting taken advantage of in these type of situations, or you also have distant family members that's grooming the kids into different type of sexual work, it really does break my heart. And it's a vast amount of things that happen to these children. It's not just about sexual abuse and things of that sort. It's a lot of
Mm,
different things that happen to them. And it just really breaks my heart because, again, they're young. They cannot properly advocate for themselves like
right.
versus an adult. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do want you to go deeper into this for informational and educational reasons. Let's elaborate on neglect. What is a form of neglect in case a parent, it may be neglecting their child and don't know that that's what they're doing. Like highlight and lighten me on what's a situation or an example of neglect.
Okay. So neglect is, I want to say, a vast, um, a vast definition, meaning it could have multiple different things. Um, okay, so neglect have a lot of different meanings for us with the state. And in general, neglect is just, not paying attention to your child. For example, we as humans, we have to go to the doctor. We have to get our shots, immunization records and things of that nature to be healthy human beings. We have to eat food to be thriving human beings. We have to have the proper clothes on our back to be, comfortable outside. So when I think of neglect, I think of those things. When you have a child and you fail to take care of them properly, for example, making sure their shots are up to date so that they don't go out in this world and, face the normal population and catch something, making sure they have clothes on their back. Like everybody wakes up every day and make sure they're comfortable outside. Put on pants, shirt. We don't wear a shirt that's too small or pants that's too small that's been from like 2-3 years ago. So that's what we apply to neglect when it comes to children. You don't want to, for example, send them to school with clothes from 3 years ago that are too small for them, or sending them to bed hungry. Normally, a normal human, you wouldn't go to bed hungry, So it's like just like neglect. It's almost abuse, not feeding them, making them go to school in these manners, and not getting haircuts, especially with young girls, sending them to schools without proper hygiene, they haven't brushed their teeth. You're not following up on them to see, hey, did you brush your teeth? Did you do your hair? And essentially at first we was, saying, kids could be kids, but it got to a point where we started putting it back on the parents. Because if you truly love your child, before they leave out of that door, they're a representation of you. So it would be in your best interest to make sure, hey, let me check to make sure my child got on a jacket today. It's kind of windy. Or, have on decent clothes. We're not saying the best clothes, but just decent clothes, socks on their feet, proper shoes, things of that nature. Their hair is combed back, whatever, making sure they look presentable and are ready to face the world every day.
Okay. Abuse. Let's talk about different forms of abuse. We already know, like, a lot of the cases people go through sexual abuse. We know physical abuse is one where there is, maybe hitting and bruising with different weapons or utensils or tools. And then another form of abuse is verbal abuse. Are kids placed in the system due to any kind of verbal abuse or any other abuse that we don't talk about today, that we don't know about?
Yes. When we get to those cases of abuse, it varies. I like to say when it comes to abuse, there's one thing when it comes to disciplining your child. Maybe they did something that you weren't, so happy with, and you gave them a consequence, versus it was something they did and you literally took out your whole frustration on them. I feel like it's a difference between that. And that's where that little fine line with disciplining your child and abuse comes in place. Like, for instance, we've had cases where the parents were actually mental health and they would put cigarette butts out on the child. That's a form of physical abuse. We have other situations where the parents drunk a lot of alcohol. They were alcoholics. And when they would get drunk, they would be very verbally abusive to their children. Like, I wish you were never born. Why are you here? Very hurtful things to say to a minor, and with minors, as they grow with these things, they actually believe these things. They tend to grow with these things. And, that's a story for another day. But they tend to grow with these things, and that's why it's verbal abuse. So those are just a few examples of the cases that we get. Physical abuse, where you're beating and hitting your child. And again, there's nothing wrong with disciplining your child, because children need discipline. They don't know any better. But it's a fine line with disciplining and actually beating and taking your full anger out on them, because we're adults, we're a lot bigger than them. So, putting a lot of pressure on them, throwing them against walls, throwing objects at them, things of that nature, like things you wouldn't want done to you, you know? Yeah.
And so we do know that the end of foster care is normally the age of 18. Is that correct? Or could they be older? And what's the youngest that you guys take kids in?
Yeah, so fun fact, before 2021, it used to be 18. But what we have realized is the children have not been surviving at 18 because essentially they don't know what to do. They're kind of still lost, like, okay, I'm 18, but I don't have the proper skills. I didn't have, let's say, for example, the same foster parent the whole 18 years. So they didn't teach me how to get ready for the world and things of that nature. So we had a lot of kids coming back into care, begging for services because that's all they really know, So at 18, essentially what I'm saying is at 18, they wasn't really ready for the real world. So we ended up changing everything to 21 years of age for them to sign out. So they have the choice at 18 now to either stay in care and go to college, get a job, GED, whatever they would want to do at that time, or sign out. But to answer your question, the age is now 21. Yes.
Okay. And with the things that you named when it comes to different neglect and abuse patterns, what are some of the behavior patterns that is instilled in the children and why they need behavior services?
Yes. So, for example, some of the behaviors that come from this is wetting the bed. You have kids that are maybe about like 9, 10 in their preteen years where they're not obviously supposed to be wetting the bed. We would expect them to not be. But due to the abuse, due to verbal or physical, they get scared. Their nervous system starts to shut down early. And they start wetting the bed. They start, having these delays. And for example, they get insecurity. They become people pleasers. They don't really know how to defend themselves when they go to school. They let the kids pick on them and things of that nature because at home, they're pretty much getting bullied by their own parent. So essentially, when they go to school, they don't really know how to defend themselves because they don't know how to defend themselves at home. So you get what I'm saying? So when they go to school and the other kids start to bully them or talk about their futures or put them down, that's essentially what they're used to. So they'll allow that type of verbal abuse at school as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to talk
really
a little.
heartbreaking.
Yes, it is. I wanna move in the direction of the system itself. Do you think that the system was a great orchestration for these children, or is there some slack in there too? Is this system broken? Could this system improve?
Yes. I do believe, for example, for the children that are getting abused in these homes, I feel like the system could be a good thing to where they get rescued from their abusers, if they're being sexually abused or whatever the case may be, or any type of violence that they're dealing with, the system can come in and rescue them. However, I feel like there are holes in the system, and first of all, they have a very high turnaround rate with caseworkers and case managers. A lot of the times, they're not really checking up on these children. Like, once they place them in these foster homes, they're not really checking up on them. They'll go months without going to see how the kid is doing. And these foster parents, it's not really hard to become a foster parent. I'll say that. So they can be anybody. As long as you don't have a record or anything, we can give your child to anyone. So where I feel like the holes are is with the case managers, essentially. Because once you place these children with these people that we trust, air quotes, it's best that you check up on them. But because the case managers are having like 1 to 50 cases assigned per caseworker, they rarely follow protocol and stay in compliance to do their job. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where things happen where we are not aware.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, if they're getting touched at a foster home, you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And we're not doing our job or falling short of doing our checkups, that could be another line of abuse on top of what they already came into the system for.
Right.
Essentially, you understand what I'm saying?
Right. And is it fair to say, of course, these are not robots. These are human beings with a job title. So depending on how the caseworker or the manager or whoever is working in the system, that they can have emotional and mental issues as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that when you hear these stories, I would say this is for anyone. Most caseworkers, I will start by saying most caseworkers, all of us had therapy. All of us had therapists at some point. Because working in the system, you will need it. You hear all types of stories from all walks of earth. It's different abuse. Obviously, it isn't good stories. It's very heart-wrenching stories. And then they put you in a place where you have to make a decision based on what you've heard.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes you feel like, what if I make this decision and it's not the best interest for the child?
Mm-hmm.
Or I make this decision and, the child isn't happy. Essentially puts you in a very tough spot because not only are you hearing what's happening to this human being, like you stated earlier, you also have to make a life decision for them.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that some of the cracks and holes that are in the system, do you think it's ever any snobby situations where things get behind or swept under the rug because of people's personal lives?
Yes, I have an example about that. So I would say during COVID, a lot of people were not open to adoption. A lot of people did not want the kids in their homes. So essentially, the caseworkers started to pretty much allow the kids to sleep at the DFACS office. And that's, to me, was, I would say, the biggest loophole that I've seen in my 6 years, because we're in the business of making sure these children are safe. We're going into these homes, rescuing them to make sure they have proper homes.
Right.
And during COVID, I've seen them literally allow the kids to sleep in the DFACS office on the floors, on the bunks, and we actually made the news during that time in regards to this situation. The kids would be in the DFACS office sleeping on the floors until they get a placement, meaning until somebody is open to letting them come in their house to stay for a few days or a few weeks, whatever, whatever the placement is. But yeah, essentially, they were letting them sleep on the floor at the DFACS office. And to me, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen, because I'm like, we're going into these homes, we're fighting to get these kids out of reckless situations, trying to put them in safe homes, and here they are on the floor at the DFACS office. It was unbelievable.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your position so that I can ask my next question? What role did you play?
Okay, so my role or my general duties would be going into, well, first let me start. Once CPS gets a call, we begin an investigation, and then you're assigned a caseworker. My role would be to go in the home and begin the intake and the first step of the investigation, meaning checking the home, making sure, there's no drugs, making sure, the home is well kept and the kids are in a livable space. Once we do the investigation, depending on what the results of the investigations is, I then go into the home and remove the child.
Hmm.
Once I remove the child, I go over their org chart, pretty much look at their behaviors, what they're dealing with, where they're coming from, things of that nature, and find a placement for them, which is a home. We call it placement because not all the homes are adoption homes.
Hmm.
So I would be responsible for finding their placement
Hmm.
for the next 90 to 60 days. It just depends.
So that's temporary stay.
Yes, their
And,
temporary placement.
okay, so it's temporary
Yeah.
placement and then it's permanent placement.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
what was the craziest situation or time that you experienced with removing the kids that you agreed that they should be removed? And then I want to know a situation where you think a family should have kept their kids so we can have a better understanding. So what was the craziest experience that you had when you had to visit a home and extract children from them or from the home?
Okay, so I'm going to answer your first question and just reiterate your second question when I'm done. So the first question, when you ask what's the craziest situation I've been in homes on the west side of Atlanta that don't have proper heating and conditioning in their home. So when we went in the home, there was not proper heating and cooling inside of the apartment. The apartment had been without air conditioner and heating and cooling for about almost 2 months. The kids were sweating. The kids were just all over the place. You can tell that it was causing them breathing hazards because they did not have proper heating and cooling in their unit.
Mm.
Another example was we searched fridges to see if they're eating. And in that same home, they had no food inside of the fridge. Matter of fact, the fridge was messed up, and the mom told me that she was waiting on maintenance. And when I pulled the kids one-on-one, they told me, "Ma'am, our fridge hasn't been working for the last 4 months."
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So with situations like that where the parent would try to cover, it's a maintenance issue, or my house is well kept, and this is just happening for now, and then you pull the kids and ask them, hey, when have you had a hot cooked meal? Like, when was the last time you ate, you would say, a basic meal, like chicken, mashed potatoes, and broccoli, whatever. Just a very simple meal. And they can tell you. And in that particular situation, the kids ended up telling me, "Ma'am, we don't put food in the fridge because the refrigerator itself hasn't been worked on in months." Meaning that fridge hasn't been operating for months. So who knows what they're eating, if they even get home cooked meals or refrigerated meals. It creates so many concerns once the kids start telling you stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. And then the second question was, have you ever had an instance where you don't believe that DFACS or CPS should have been involved in a case, like if it was unfair or, a custody issue? Do you remember anything in that nature happening?
Yes, absolutely. I had a 28-year-old mom who had ran into the store. Her child, she had an infant of, I want to say, like 2 years old. And she had left her car running, and she ran into a store, and she was disputing a gas situation where she had paid for gas and was trying to figure out why, the gas wasn't pretty much generating outside. And during this time, it was another lady who was parked next to her who seen her leave her child attended for about maybe I would say 3 to 5 minutes. And she went ahead and called CPS and gave them the tag number, the car color, everything about what was going on. And pretty much told them that the child was in there suffocating and she couldn't breathe. And
Wow.
in my situation, I felt like that was one of the cases that did not needed to get that serious because one, we all know a car that's running, there's some type of air or heat working if the car is
Ventilation,
running.
all that, right.
Ventilation going on. That's one. Two, we've all stayed in the car while we were asleep before, while our
Right.
parents are out and about. You know,
Uh-huh.
especially if we're asleep. I personally, if I had a child, I would not wake my child up just because I'm running into the
Right.
store to purchase gas.
Right.
You know, if that makes
Right.
sense. I wouldn't do
Yes.
that. So I feel like parents that get penalized for that is kind of ridiculous. You know,
What were the
and it's kind of
repercussions? What were the repercussions for that? I'm sorry for cutting you off.
Oh no, no problem. So the repercussions for that was pretty much she had an open case with defects.
Okay.
They deemed it as neglect, even though it was only for about I want to say 5 to 10 minutes. It wasn't even that long. She had an open case because of that, and they had to come and check her parenting skills. They had to send an evaluator to her home and just really monitor her for about 30 to 60 days to see how her parenting is, because they felt like when they see one form of neglect, they feel like it's from a bigger umbrella. So they're checking all the areas of neglect. Are you feeding the child? If you were to, leave them at the gas station, or are you, do they have proper clothes? Are their musicians up to, par and things of that nature?
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think this question is going to pretty much wrap it up. So, with people having jobs and different things, or probably are even in school, it doesn't take for you to be an outstanding parent to, be a parent. So if there was any advice that you can give to a single parent or any kind of guardian, grandparents, aunts, uncles, or a friend that are in the place where they're caring for a child, what is the simplest way to keep children out of foster care? Because not for the ones that don't, like not big of, deals. It's all a big deal, but what would you say that can help keep kids from going to foster care? Because even the foster care system can be very tricky, abusive, and all of the above. Is good and bad. So what could we do as a community, as people, and as parents to prevent this from happening to our best of our ability? Not being the best, but at least doing what's right.
I would say focusing on the essentials of a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said earlier, like you wouldn't leave the house looking any kind of way.
Yeah.
So when you have children, make sure they don't leave the house looking any type of way.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't leave the house or go days without eating a meal.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that your children are fed and that they're well and ready to represent themselves in the best way they can.
Right.
Just the basic needs. Making sure they're well kept. Basic needs.
Okay.
Like I said, you wouldn't even, leave a dog to go hungry all those days. So just pretty much, I would say emphasize when I say take care of your children, I mean really take care of your children. Going behind them, making sure their teeth is brushed,
Yeah.
making sure their hair is combed, making sure they have up-to-date clothes and shoes. We're not saying designer clothes or the best clothes out there, but, essential clothes so they're covered and well at school, That's the main advice I would give, honestly. Making sure that the basic needs are covered, because that's really what these cases are about.
Right.
Oh, the child hasn't been in the hospital or haven't had a physical checkup in 4 or 5 years. That's unacceptable.
Right.
You wouldn't do that yourself. You personally would not leave and neglect yourself to not get medical care. Medical care for 4 to 5 years, or not go to a dentist for 4 to 5, 6 years.
Right, right,
Like it's little examples like that. Take care of them like how you would take care of yourself, or how you would
right,
want to be taken care of.
right. And that's the standard for what DFACS and CPS look for in order to not bother a home is the essential basic needs being met.
Yes, and just treat them like how you would want to be treated. When it comes to abuse and neglect and all the other stuff that we bring the kids in care for, you wouldn't want nobody putting you down every day. You wouldn't want nobody beating on you every day.
Right.
Treat them how you want to be treated. Talk to them with encouragement. How would you feel if you went home every day and somebody put you down? It would build a character of insecurity, you know?
Yeah.
So talk to them like how you want to be talked to. Handle them in a way that you would want to be handled by anyone.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing this information. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Have a good one.
And you as well.